Hey, um, good evening, everyone. Um, for tonight's session, we're going to be looking into introduction to JavaScript, and my name is Abimbola Olaide, and I'll be taking tonight's session. So, and in today's objective, we're going to be looking at what is JavaScript and why are we picking JavaScript um for testing to compare to other languages like C Sharp, Python, or even Java. And we'll see how we can set up our VS Code for JavaScript, and we'll look into variables in depth. We'll talk about different type of variable. How can we declare variable in JavaScript? We'll talk about. So we'll do some exercises, and to be great if we can finish those exercises in the class. We'll have some question and answer session later in the class. So, what is JavaScript? So, JavaScript is a dynamic program and it's mainly used for creating interactive content for the web. So how JavaScript came into place was during the web, that is in the 19th, early 19th. So they created JavaScript because of HTML was just to display content on the web, while CSS was to style the web. But they need something for interactivity. So JavaScript was created. But JavaScript has its limitation. The some programmers created jQuery. So jQuery is similar to JavaScript, right? But it has been discontinued as JavaScript has. It has more features than jQuery when it comes to web development. So JavaScript allows developer to implement complex features like timely content updates or real-time updates, interactive map, animation on the web. So those animation you see on the web is done by JavaScript and multimedia content. So in case you want to move from testing to development using JavaScript, I'll try to accommodate that in this course. And JavaScript is also a lightweight programming language used for making web page interactive, and it runs in the browser. Okay, so we can run JavaScript in the browser, and I'll show you how to run JavaScript in the browser in next session. But we'll be working towards our code editor, which is going to be Visual Studio Code. So it can run be it Chrome, Firefox, and Edge, and it can also run on the server using Node.js. So in last session we installed Node.js, and I'll also teach you how to install it in next session. And it was created in 1995 by Bernard H or H, originally named Mocha. So it was the first name was actually Mocha, then it was called LiveScript, then finally JavaScript. So and it is not related to Java in any way. So it is dynamic in the sense that once you declare a variable, you can redeclare it. And it also has some weird features that makes people don't really like JavaScript. Okay? And it is the second most used language. So that is JavaScript for you. So why JavaScript for tester? So most modern automation tools are JavaScript based, okay, such as Cypress, Playwright, even Selenium. You can use Playwright. You can use JavaScript for Selenium. Even Appium, you can also use JavaScript for Appium. But the newest one, which is Cypress and Playwright, are mainly um, they were mainly initially created with JavaScript, and because it's very easy to create stuff with JavaScript, testing automation framework with JavaScript. So JavaScript is also used to validate API and DOM elements. So if we want to interact with our element in our web browser, we make use of JavaScript. So even if you are using Selenium with C Sharp, Selenium with Java, you are using JavaScript under the hood. Okay? So it also help in writing custom script and test data. So we'll see how we can write custom script and test data generator. So there are different libraries that we can use in JavaScript to create our test data. So that is not going to be coming up in this session. It's going to be coming up when that introduction to Playwright. Okay. So it also deepens your understanding on how web application behave. So once you have solid understanding of JavaScript, you understand how web application behave, and you're able to have more insight in testing web application. And it can also be used for almost all types of testing, such as API, integration, security, unit testing. So by learning JavaScript and with your knowledge of how different type of testing work, you can actually use the language to test almost all type of testing that exists. Then it supports multi paradigm. So it supports multiple programming styles such as functional and object-oriented programming. So we'll be focusing more on the object-oriented programming side, but along the way you will see the functional side. So the functional side is not as deep as that of, let's say, Rust, or that of, so there are different functional programming language like F sharp. So F sharp is also a functional program um where function are first class citizen, meaning that you can't, a lot of rules that guide functional programming. But with object-oriented programming language, you have your classes, you have your interfaces, you have some properties such as inheritance. Um, so we'll learn that later on, but not tonight session. Okay. And it also supports dynamic typing, and it has the largest package infrastructure. So the largest package infrastructure is npm, which is created by JavaScript developers. So, like I said, JavaScript is the second most used language just after Python. Okay. A lot of programmers actually make use of JavaScript. So if you are looking for a package to do one thing, you don't need to wait. You always see a package or even multiple packages that does the same thing. So you just be confused in which one should I pick. And being the largest package manager, or the npm, actually comes with its advantage. So there's a lot of bugs or a lot of malicious code that has been published in the npm because it's open source. So almost anyone can just put their code out there in the internet and publish it in npm. So that is why you want to learn JavaScript as a tester. So we're going to set up VS Code. I'll just show a quick demo on how you can set up JavaScript because of people that were not here for the class. So, so So you can just, if you're on Windows, okay, you just search for um Microsoft Store. Search for Microsoft Store. So once it loads, search for Visual Studio Code. That's this blue icon. But once you search for Visual Studio, you see different results. We have this one. We have this is Visual Studio. As you can see, this is what we're going to be using, and it was developed by Microsoft. So it is a very is standard, and it is being used in your work, or it's going to be used in different work environment or in your job. So you are more likely to come across Visual Studio Code when you are working, especially if you are using Playwright, or if your work require you to use JavaScript. A lot of people are going to be using Visual Studio Code. So there are other IDE like WebStorm that you can use for paid. So, but Visual Studio is one of the free, and it's one of the best free alternative, and it's also lightweight. Okay. So you just click on install. Once you search for Visual Studio, you click on install. And the second one is going to be, so that is how you install Visual Studio. And the second one is going to be installing our extension. Okay, so with Visual Studio, we have extension. So Visual Studio on its own cannot work properly. So we have some extension that will make our Visual Studio experience better as a JavaScript tester. Which some of them are going to be the code runner, which we're going to be installing, which is for execution of code. So, but it's not just restricted to JavaScript. I think you can also use it for C++, C, and Java. Yeah, but then we have Protea, so it's for plain formatting. because we don't want our code base to be messy. So as our code base group, um we tend to get messy. So but with the help of Prettier, we can actually clean our code base. And the next one is ESLint. So ESLint is a linter. So a linter is just basically it helps in syntax highlighting. For instance, if you are doing something wrong with a linter, to tell you, oh, you know what, you are doing something wrong. So it also detects JavaScript error. So JS is short for JavaScript. So I'm going to install the extension now, and then I'll show you how to install Node and we'll verify Node. So I'll open Visual Studio Code. So this is Visual Code. So once you open your Visual Studio Code, you have something like this. You have a welcome screen. So once you open it, this is what you're going to have. Then we'll come to extension. Okay. So the first one we're going to be installing is going to be Prettier. Prettier. So this is Prettier, as you can see, has over 62 million downloads. So that is very, very popular. It's a code formatter. So I'm going to trust and publish. As you can see, it has installed. So once it has changed to uninstall, that means it has installed. I will configure Prettier later on. Next one is going to be ESLint. So it's a linter, and it is created by Microsoft. Microsoft are the creator of ESLint. So another one we can also install is going to be Code Runner. This is the Code Runner. You can run C, C++, Java, JavaScript, PHP. I'm going to install it. It has 36 million. So you can also install material icon theme. So this is better than the default um, VS Code icon. So it's going to give us better icon than the VS Code. So, and I'm going to change my file theme to use material icon. So, so that is what we're going to be needing. So that is all the extension we're going to be needing. So to check your extension, ensure that we have our code runner, we have our ESLint, we have material icon, and we also have our Prettier. So from going forward, we need to configure our Prettier. So one of the first thing I'm going to go to setting. So I'm going to update my autosave from autosave off to autosave after on focus change, so I can have saving. I can have my file to save automatically. Then I'll search for formatter. So I'm going to format on save. I'm going to click format on save. And for the default formatter, make sure you pick Prettier as our default format. So that is all you need to do for now. So if you want to change your icon, make sure you click on file icon, then set material icon. And for the Prettier, you go to the settings, and you search for format. You click on format on save, Prettier code formatter, and you turn on autosave so it can work properly. Commonly used. So these are what a lot of people tend to use it on. Format on save, autosave, and default formatter. That is that one. Then the next one is going to be the next one is going to be installing Node.js. So Node.js is what we're going to be using to run our JavaScript. Okay, so there are different ways you can run your JavaScript. So you can run it in the browser, you can run it with Node.js. That comes as a server, or you can run it with Born, which is a new one, which is a new um JavaScript runner executor. That way. So I'm gonna come here. I'm going to install Node.js. So once installed Node.js, so click on the first link. So you select So we select the pre-built version. Okay, we click our operating system, so you can have Windows, Mac, Linux. So we can pick our architecture 86 ARM or x64. Then we can download the MSI. So make sure you pick for your operating system. But if you are running a Windows system with x64 architecture, make sure you pick the x64. And if it is an ARM based operating system you're using, make sure you pick for that. So there are different installer based on the computer architecture. Okay. So click on download. You get you get your file or you install it. So, and to verify our Node.js, so we just need to write some command in the command prompt. So I'll open my command prompt. There look node. So this is node dash version. So this is just way of saying version. So this is our node. So as you can see, node is installed in my operating system. Once you've downloaded the installer, you just need to install it. Then you have node. There's only for you to configure um your environment like how you do in Java. Then I'll do npm, which is our node package manager. So npm is just for node package manager version 10. I have version 10.9.3. That's what we just need for now. So we need our Visual Studio and our Node.js. Okay, so I hope. So now we're going to be starting with introduction to JavaScript, and to continue that, we're going to be doing what are variables. So a variable in programming is a name storage location that hold a value of data. So just in simple terms for saying, okay, it's like our bank that stores money. It's just a storage for a value. So our bank can either store our money. That's how it works. So very and this value can change during the execution of a program. So that's why it's called a variable, because it can change. And they are mainly used for storing and manipulating data in computer program. So the term variable is actually used worldwide. So it's not just for JavaScript alone. You also have it in C++, you have it in Java, you have it in C#, you have it in different. So it's standard. Just anything that stores variable in in the programming world is called a variable. So they also hold different type of data. We have whole number, we have decimal number, we have text, we have array, and, and variable can store values that may change and the one that may not change during execution. And JavaScript allows dynamic data handling. So it's very, very easy to handle dynamic data in JavaScript. And it also used to store fixed type of that what variables. So in JavaScript, there are three ways to declare a variable. So the first one is the var keyword. So the var keyword is also used in different programming language, C# or Java. But in JavaScript, right, it is the old way of declaring a variable. Why? Because it is function scoped and can be redeclared. So I won't go deep into what function is or what scope functions are or scope blocks are, I meant. But just know that your var keyword is actually discontinued when it comes to JavaScript. So you're going to be finding var in old code base, but not something new. And the next one is going to be the let keyword. Okay, so this is the new way of declaring a variable. It is block scope and it is flexible, meaning that you can store changing data when it comes to the let. And the constant, okay, is when you want to declare a variable that doesn't change. It is block scoped and it is read only. Okay. So the read only in the sense that once you declare it, you can't change it again. Okay. It's like I'm just going to show you how variable is declared. To create a new file, right? I'm going to close my extensions settings. So I'll click on open folder. So I'll just put it in my downloads. Okay. So I'll just click new folder. So I can just call it NJS. So I can select that folder. Okay. As you can see, I have my folder already. So to create a new file in JavaScript, you know, click on plus button. Okay. Then click on type in index.js. Make sure you put the file extension. The file extension is .js. So the index is the name of the file, and the file extension is the way for the compiler or for Visual Studio to know that this is a JavaScript file. So we talked about three ways of declaring a variable. So the first one is going to be the let. Like we say let. So the first one is going to be the var. So as you can see, this is var. So as you can see, this is our name. Okay? And we're using the var keyword to declare it. We also have our let keyword. So we also have our let keyword. Okay? And the last one, we have our constant, which is a keyword. But these are three ways we can declare a variable. We have the var, we have the let, and I said the var is not really recommended in JavaScript because of scoping. So we'll talk about scope when we talk about functions later on. Then the let is what we should be using going forward, and the constant is when we don't want something to change. For instance, now in order to display something on the console in JavaScript, we make use of the console console class. So the console is a class in JavaScript that stores console related information. So we say dot right line, the right line, dot log, or say log name. Okay, I could log my name because of name is it has to do with JavaScript stuff. So if I don't want to use name, I can just use names. But it's not it's wrong according to the variable name. So I'm just going to leave it as name. So I'm going to save it. Then the next one is going to be age. I'm going to try to print my age. So remember, console.log is for printing console. That is to print our age. The next one is going to be status. So you can see print status. So I will save it and I will click on the run. So anytime you want to run your code, make sure you click on the run. As you can see, my name is Ola. So because this console make us it help us to display data on the console. So name is displayed as Ola, the age is displayed as 20, um, and the status is displayed as pass. So now in constant, I say we can't change our variable. If I want to change my, I can change my var and my let keyword, but I can't change my status. For instance, I'll say name equals to now. So as you can see in here, I use double quotation and I also use single quotation. So we'll talk in detail about strings later on, but not in our section. But you could use double quotation and single quotation when it comes to JavaScript. The flexibility is there. And similarly, I will update my age. Lastly, I will try to update my status. Let's see what's going on. As you can see, based on what we have initially, we have Ola. So we printed Ola on the screen. So we have Ola, right? Next one was we updated our name to John. So we are assigned the value of Ola to John. We have John. Then our age, we declare our age variable as 20 and we printed it out on the console. We had 20 and we updated the age to 40. Now we have 40. Then we printed pass and we try to update our variable. So as you can see, we can't update a constant. But if you look at it, we have a lot of unnecessary error. But the main error is going to be assignment to constant variable. So we can't reassign to constant variable. So anytime you're declaring a constant, right, you cannot reassign the variable. Oh, okay. So that is why I said anytime you want a value that doesn't change, then you put it a constant. Okay. And I made mention of JavaScript as a dynamic language. So as you can see, we have um, Ola as a string. So I'll try not to change this one again. So we have Ola as a string. So I'm going to talk about string later on. And I can or if I don't want to assign it to string, I can assign it to something. It's going to work fine. And I can assign this one to string like Amy. Then I will leave my path with it, and then I'll save it, then run it. And our name is Ola, right? So this is Ola. Our we've printed Ola on the console. We updated our name to 20. Now it's a dynamic language, so things can change before compiling it. So once you've updated your value before compiling it, it's going to change. But if it was statically typed languages like C++, C Sharp, Java, then you're going to get an exception. Okay, so without casting, you're going to have an exception. So as you can see, we have 20, so we can change our name to 20, which is not what we could, probably want, but it is possible. So that's some of the strange part about JavaScript. And our age is 20, right? We printed 20 on the console, and our age, we also made our age. So as you can see, it has a type of number, and our age now is telling us that our age still has a type of number. So as you can see, it's expecting a number, but we can pass it into it. And if we print our age, we're going to have Temi. So, but Temi is not is not a number, it's a string. Then our status remains the same. Okay. That is how we initialize variable, and thus that is just to show the dynamic um property of JavaScript. We would continue. So that is how we just declare variable and the dynamic properties of JavaScript. So what are the rules when naming a variable? So the first one was it must start with a letter, either a letter or a underscore or a dollar sign. But in most program language, underscore and dollar sign not going to be used like Java or C#. You can't use on symbol when it comes to those languages. But for JavaScript, you can use three of them to start your variable name. Then you cannot start with a number. So when declaring a variable in JavaScript, you cannot start with a number. And it is case sensitive. So name doesn't equal to name. So if we declare a variable with small letter name and we declare a variable with NAME, they're not going to be equal to each other. Capital letter N. And most times you're going to be using camel case for naming your variable and uppercase for your constant. So let's talk a little bit about camel case. naming rules when it comes to JavaScript. So I'm going to be deleting. I'm just going to be working with the name. So I said we can start with a small letter, right? So that our small letter is name. So that is what we're currently using. And I can also start with mm, a underscore. Right? So if I do underscore name and I run it, you can yeah, I'm going to run it. As you can see, this is run. I have my name, so we can use underscore um, to name our variable. But like I said, it's not really good. The underscore is mainly used in classes, and I'll explain why when we get to the section of things. That is the underscore. Okay. And then what we can use is the okay, so we can use it as a string here. I'm gonna run. We can use underscore, just our normal alphabet and the symbol. So we can use two symbols to name our variable, which is underscore and the dollar sign. We cannot use a number. So let us try using a number to declare our variable. As you can see, um, an error already. So this is um our linter telling us that oh, you have an error. That is ESLint telling us you have an error. It is we can't use it. So even if we run, okay, it's going to tell us that this is invalid or unexpected. So as you can see, the language is so verbose when it comes to error handling. So we'll talk about error handling later. We can't do that. So I'm going to delete it. I'm going to delete it. Okay. And the last point I want to make now is going to be camel case. So what's camel case? So camel case when you have a long name, variable name, right, and you want to make it, you don't want to just name your variable anyhow. Like for instance, you don't want to use something like that. So you want to use camel case. So maybe we want to call it date of birth. Let's say we want to do a date of birth. We can say date of. So the key word with camel cases, we're going to first start with this first sentence, or the first part of the sentence with a small letter. That is the date. So what we want to write is maybe this is what we want to write. The first part of the sentence is going to be small letter. The next part is going to be off. There's going to be a capital letter, just the first letter of the next word. Then for the next word, which is birth, it's also going to start with a capital letter, but the rest is going to be start with small letter. Then maybe we have another one again, like this in M, we're going to start with small letter. So hope it makes sense. So you can see we can separate it. Date, but you can't separate a variable. You have to make sure that they're together. That's the main goal. And in some languages, you tend to see them doing something like this. So, but in JavaScript, right, you can use underscore to actually join them together, like in Python. In JavaScript, what you're going to see is going to be the camel case. So if we are going to be using underscore, that is called the snake case. But for JavaScript, we go with the camel case, which is like a camel back. Okay. We'll go into type of variable. So that's variable. Okay, I want to talk about the case sensitive part of JavaScript. Mm. Next equals to 10. Let's you we do an equality sign. We could log also name, and we could also log to also we have two variables, small letter n and letter n. So let's see. I'm going to run them. So the first small letter n is 10, and capital letter n is la a string. As you can see, they are not the same. So don't let the the name of the variable fool you. Once the casing is different, they are actually different. Okay. So I'm going to the next, which is going to be type of data you can store in a variable. So we said variables actually hold values or data, right? And there are different type of data we can actually store. So and they are categorized into two main groups, which is primitive and the non-primitive. So the first one is going to be the primitive type. And these are the built-in data type provided by JavaScript. Okay, they represent single value and they are non-mutable. JavaScript supports primitive types such as numbers, string, undefined, boolean, null, big int, and symbol. But doing automation, we're going to be focusing on three or four, sorry, man. We're going to be focusing on number, focus on string, focus on boolean, and focus on null. Okay. So those are the four types we're going to be focusing more on. And we also have non-primitive type. So they're also known as reference type. So they are objects and they are derived data type, meaning that this primitive type are so non-primitive type are built on top of primitive type, and they can store collection of values or more complex entities. For instance, our array and our object. Our array is collection of primitive data type, be it a number, be it a string. So that is an array, and an object can store different data type, and that's its own notation. So we'll talk more about that later on in the advanced session. This I'll just this is number. Number, this data type in JavaScript can be used to hold decimal as well as value without decimal. So with number, we can store um, integer or whole number. Okay? Or rather, we can store natural number. That's its whole number, 50 in X. And similarly, we can also store 1.5, which is a decimal in Y. As you can see, we don't need to declare the variable type. So the compiler, or sorry, the interpreter already knows which variable type we have. Unlike other program language, we need to declare what type exactly we are actually defining. So this is let x equals to 50, like we did let h equals to 20 and 40. That is how it works. So we also have string. Okay. This data type in JavaScript represent a sequence of characters that are surrounded by single or double quote. Okay. So with our string, we can decide to use single quotes or we can decide to use a double quotation. And to remind you, we don't need a semicolon when we're writing JavaScript. So it is also optional, just like how we can decide to have either a single quotation or a double quotation when it comes to JavaScript. And it's quite flexible to program now. So just going to demonstrate the numbers. So this is the age. So this is the age variable. So it equals to 20. Then I would print our age. This is our age, which is 20. Also another This is also valid in JavaScript. So, and this is all type of number. I didn't save it. So if you don't save it, you won't see your next. I have 20 and I have 20 and I have 7. I was score is 7.5 and we have 20. And if I put my first one down, the type is obviously displaying, which is number. So, and what is the type of age? Age is number. What is the type of score? Score is also number, as you can see. Both of them in JavaScript called number. So, but if you are working in different languages, it may be in Boolean, sorry, it may be in double, it may be in int, depending on the programming language. But in JavaScript, all numbers are all number. And the second one is going to be string. So I can say, let's say I'm going to the post office. As you can see, it is being updated to the double quote because of our prettier. So if I select for prettier, it's because of prettier is updating automatically. So, we can update prettier. I can decide to. So I can decide to put if prettier should add semicolon. So if I take this one and I save my settings and I decide to remove semicolon and I save it, as you can see, there's no semicolon. And I'll be able to still print my word with or without semicolon. I'm going to post office and it without a semicolon. Similarly, if I check for the setting, I can also remove the double quotation if I don't like double. Or you can see use single quotation. So um, if I change this to single quotation, and lastly, if I forget, make sure you just have a single type of quotation. For instance, if you are using double quotation, you make sure you end it with a double quotation. And if you are going to be using single quotation, make sure you also end it with a single quotation. You can't end it with a double quotation. If not, it's going to write is unterminated. So that is it. So I can decide to use single quotation and see going to work. Depending on your company side, depending on what you really like to do, work with. Next one we have is Boolean. So Boolean operation, sorry, Boolean data type is can only accept two values, or it only stores two type of value, which is true, false. Okay. So, and this is mainly used with conditional statement. That is our if statement. So, Boolean stores two variable which are two type of variable which are true and false, and is mainly used with conditional. So, a Boolean. Okay, let's see if I remove that is true. So, as past, and if I put my first yes, past is Boolean. So, I'll also decide to change it to false. Okay, and I will run it. As you can see, our Boolean expression store either false or true or false, depending or just two variables. And when writing Boolean, make sure it reads correctly. Like let past, so as past, as it passed to be without, so you don't like say let past or pass equals to false. So it doesn't really make sense. So make sure that you can read it. So it makes sense if you want to. If you are reading it when you have a condition, so it's going to make sense that way. It's empty. Is it true? So is it empty? So it's not like we are omitting the it part of the word. Next is our big int. Sorry about that. So our big int data type represents number greater than 2 raised power 3 minus 1. Okay. Which so it helps us perform operation on large number. We're probably not going to be using it. The number is specified by writing an n at the end of the value. Okay, so to display big int and how it differs from our number. So we can have let's let's big number also and 10. As you can see, they are both 10, but the only difference is the end part of 10. So if I print n, big n, big number, so if I print out the n and big number, what am I going to have? I have 10n. If I put my cursor on n, I'm going to have big int. If I put my cursor on, as you can see, we have our 10n. So it's mainly used for advanced calculation. We're probably not going to be using it throughout our time as a tester, unless some certain scenario which will be unavoidable but is rare. That is the number and that big int. The only difference is that so this is valid. If I run if if I put n, but this is going to be big int under the it's very very large now. We are working in exponential mathematics. I said most of our number can be handled by the compiler without using n keyword. So, mm, so now we have the symbol data type, which is the last, which is the next data type of I'm talking about. So it is used to create objects which will always be unique. This object can be created using the symbol structure. So the symbol is kind of like a class. Okay, this is like a class construct in JavaScript. So just show you how it works. And there's a type of thing. I'll discuss the type of. Say, let's as you can see, the symbol takes in a description, and our description can either be a string or a number. So the pipe symbol, which is like a straight line, is a TypeScript. Okay. We'll talk about TypeScript. When we talk about TypeScript, you learn how like this. Or just like you can take in a number, or you can um, take a number, string, or undefined. I can decide to make it empty. You see the difference between undefined and I can decide to make it empty. So it's still gonna work. What's problem? We'll also say print unique log unit. If I run this, so as you can see, symbol is what unique. So similarly, I could use um 10 for it. If I use 10, I have symbol of, so you can see it's just like we're going to have our symbol then the name of the variable. It's just to make the variable unique compared to others. Like I said, you're not really going to use it. It's really used in JavaScript. So I talked about it. So now let us look at the type of. So the type of is to give us what type of variable are we having. So for instance now, let's say we don't know which variable this type is. Maybe we're getting from a database or we're getting from the web or from the browser and we want to check what type of data of what type of data are we getting so that we know what step we can do or what is the next step. Maybe we're going to raise a bug based on the output. Okay? So we can use the type of keyword. You can see. um, As you can see, when I do the type of unique and I run it, so we have symbol. Type of unique is a symbol. Symbol. For instance, if I change it to 10, as you can see, we have number. And if I try to change it to an M and a string, we should have this is the word part of the number. It did not say variable. If we do type of unique, we have n is a string. It can also be an empty string. And similarly, we could also do for big int. If I for the big int, so we can look for the big. Let's say we have. So if I do, so we have big int. The type of is just for get the type of variable we have. For most time, our interpreter is actually smart, so we don't even need type of. I just put in the cursor the um, on your variable. You can actually get which type you are getting or which type it is you want to do. So there is there are two more that we need to discuss, which is the null and the undefined. Okay. So they are actually confused. That's why I actually did a session for both of them. So what is the undefined keyword? So the undefined is a primitive value and it is automatically assigned to variables in certain situations. For instance, if we use a value when it has not been declared or we've not assigned it a value, right? Or when a function does not explicitly return a value, or when accessing a non-existent object or an array element, we want to have a undefined. So let us we won't do the function type, just do the um variable part of it. For instance, if I select you, if I delete it, we the type of unique, and I can also print out unique. The type of unique is undefined because we've not defined a variable to it. We've not assigned a variable to it. And if we print out unique, we have undefined. So meaning nothing is inside of our unique variable. So by default, we we get undefined once we declare a variable, and it can also be a function. So let me just write a function. Say this is our function h. Then I'm trying to print out h. I'll look for a way to ensure that the function break return the undefined. Or generally, if you have a variable that you do not declare, you're going to have, and let's say for array, you have on the you are trying to access element. Or for the null, the null is a special value that represents the deliberate absence of an object value. So it is used to explicitly indicate that a variable or object property will have no value, or to reset or clear variables. So in a nutshell, it means that if we want to ensure that we want to set something to be empty, we need to use the null keyword. So that's when we use the null. We need to, okay, this is null and I want it to be null. That means it has no value, to indicate that it has no value, or to reset, or if we want to remove the variable in our x, we can set it to null. And I have created my value to be null. Most time you'll be working with null value. By default, you may want to set it to null, or you may want to remove a variable existence from that particular variable you want to. Maybe you want to update it to null. And also by default, you can also define your variable as null. You can set it to null by default. By default, you can also set it to null if you don't want it to be undefined. But if I leave it, remember, we're going to be having undefined. So this is example of our data. Let name equals to string, let past equals to boolean, our score equals to 6.5 number. Our symbol is a type of symbol, and this is an array. So we'll talk more in details of an array and object. And that is how we define our variables in Java. So just a series of classwork. So first one is, how would you declare a variable to store your full name? So before you want to even declare a variable, you need to understand You need to understand the question, which is what type of variable are you going to use your are you going to store with your full name? Or what is your full name in in terms of variable? So our full name. So before I answer the question, let us make it. So anyone wants to give it a try? So anyone wants to give it a try? What is our full name? Just raise up your hand if you know the answer, or you can write it in the chat. Sorry, you couldn't hear me properly. I'm sorry about that. So does anyone know what we're going to use our we're going to call our full name? The data type we're going to use to call our full name. Anyone wants to try? Anybody? Just give it. You don't just give it a try. You don't need to be correct, okay? And it's very very simple. This one is answering. So anyway, our full name is going to be in a. It's going to be a string. I'm going to be putting it in a double quotation. So that means, or in a single quotation. So we're going to declare a string. Then the next one is so which declare a variable to store the name of a test suite. For instance, the login test. So on the answer, so our login test is going to be a string also. So anytime you want to store like a name, anything that is not number, so probably going to be using a double quotation. So similarly, if you want to create a variable that hold a browser name, maybe we want to switch our browser based on a browser name. So we'll talk about switch expression later on. We're going to be using a string to hold the browser name, which is the double quotation I have over here. Then similarly, to store the current testing environment, be it QA, staging, production, we're going to be using string to that. And we create a variable for a custom text message. So once anytime you can put it in a sentence in a word and it is not number, you are going to be using string. So similarly, how do you want to declare a variable to store your age? So to store your age, I'm going to be using a number. Next one is create a variable to for the total number of test cases in a suite. So the total number of test cases, maybe you have written 10 test cases. And that's going to be a number which you assign. Okay. So, to store the execution time in seconds, the test you run, you're going to be using a number. Let me just look into that. The first one is going to be full name. This is my full name. That is for the full name part. Then the next one is going to be the name of this test suite. So you want to store the name of the test suite. Okay. Test suite name equals to this is the name of my test suite. Okay. The next one is going to be we create a variable name that holds the browser name you're testing on. So I'm currently testing on Chrome, so I'm going to write Chrome. That is my browser name. See, I'm using string throughout. So for the full name, for the test suite, for the browser name, or I can even say browser name. I don't use Chrome. Inside you say, oh, it is Firefox I'm using, it is Edge I'm using. Just keep the so create a variable for the total number of test cases in a suite. So total number of test cases in a suite is going to be a number because you are dealing with number if you are doing calculation. So we have test cases in our code. Okay. And the execution time is in seconds. So seconds is in number. So we're also going to be using a number for it. So create a variable to check if a test passed, true or false. Declare that I'll just let's put my test as passed. True or I can say, oh, there's no pass. Let me just use false. Similarly, next one gonna be a variable to represent whether the user is logged in. Say let's put in our user is logged in. Okay, next one gonna be create a variable that store whether dark mode is enabled on page. So this is also going to be a boolean which is true or false, or maybe it is in light mode, or maybe it is in dark mode. So if it is in dark mode, then it is true. Then if it is in light mode, it is false. So create a variable to check if an element is visible on the screen. This is going to be very very common. And in Playwright, we have inbuilt method for checking that visible. So one of the um, method we can use is going to be is visible or a boolean value representing if the data is was successfully loaded. So that is also going to be a boolean. And let's declare a variable for next test case, but don't assign a value to it. So declare a variable, but you don't assign a value. Just use so that is it. We can decide to print it if you like. So this is how you go through the solution. So I hope what I'm going to stop sharing. So do we have any question?